Good morning, everyone. We're going to start in about 3 minutes. Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this wonderful Tuesday morning. Thanks for tuning in for this month's Advocacy webinar. This is JP Dorval, the Manager of Legislative Affairs and Administrative Services here at Prevention Action Alliance. And with us today, we have our Executive Director, Marcie Seidel. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So first thing on the agenda, I'm going to talk about the recreational marijuana ballot initiative that I'm sure a lot of you have heard about. And I know that we've had discussions internally about it, and I'm sure you guys have as well. But before we go into that, I just want to run you guys through the ballot initiative process, just so you guys have a sense of, how you get a ballot initiative created and put on the general election ticket. What you need to do in order to do that, so you guys can kind of get a sense of where this specific ballot initiative is in the process. So first thing that you have to do when you're creating a ballot initiative is you need to create a petitioners committee. This is a committee of 3 to 5 individuals that will represent the ballot issue and all matters relating to the ballot issue and the petition to get the issue on the ballot in front of the Attorney General, Secretary of State, whatever body has questions. This committee is there to answer that. Next thing is the committee needs to file an initial written petition to the Attorney General with about 1,000 Ohio qualified elector signatures. So that's where the current ballot initiative for recreational marijuana is. They submitted the 1,000 signatures and the petition to the Attorney General. And then once the petition is received by the Attorney General, he or she will certify whether they believe that the summary of the issue on the petition is fair and truthful. And following that, the ballot board has 10 days from the date it receives the petition. So the Attorney General needs to send it after making sure that the language is true, true and fair and truthful. They send the language to the ballot board. The ballot board has 10 days from the date it receives the petition to certify whether the proposed constitutional amendment and the summary of the proposed constitutional amendment have any, whether the language within those have any issues. And after that, the petitioners have to gather signatures, and the number of signatures will vary from year to year, depending on how many individuals in the state vote for governor. So the rule is you have to have 10% of the signatures from the total electorate that voted for the last that voted in the last governor election. I think this time around it's about 443,000. So in order to get this on the ballot, they need about 443,000 signatures by July 1st, which is the signature deadline. So they have a ways to go. As I mentioned, they're still in the Attorney General stage. So that's the current language that's out, and that's the current language I'll go through with you guys. So this ballot initiative is very similar to the adult use cannabis bill that I went through a couple months prior that the House of Representatives is considering. That bill has not been introduced, so what I think is happening is I think the industry is choosing to move forward with this ballot initiative to see if they can gain any traction. And if not, then they'll choose to go with the General Assembly option and introduce that bill. But as you can see on your screens, the title of the amendment, the petition, is an amendment to regulate marijuana like alcohol. Obviously, there are a couple flags that are raised there just for the title because we don't really regulate alcohol well, but that's neither here nor there. Moving forward, so this first big thing, it allows for the legal possession of marijuana by individuals 21 and older. And in addition to that, it allows people to consume, smoke, purchase, transport marijuana, and transfer marijuana, apparently up to 1 ounce. I don't know how they're going to regulate that or enforce that between persons who are 21 years and older. They can possess, use, display, manufacture, purchase, store, and transport marijuana accessories if they're 21 years and older, and a person that is 18 years and older can work within a company that produces or creates those accessories. People are, based on this language, individuals would be able to allow up to individuals would be able to grow up to 6 plants in their home. Again, I don't know how they're going to enforce that. I highly doubt there's going to be any regulatory body going from house to house checking whether people have more than 6 plants. But again, that's neither here nor there. Additionally, two other things that stood out to me when I was glancing through this. It allows localities to enact zoning laws and prohibition ordinances through the election ballot. So if in some weird scenario this ballot initiative does get passed and this gets enacted or rolled through, localities will be able to enact zoning laws and prohibition ordinances so that dispensaries and other marijuana manufacturing or producers aren't allowed in certain areas of their municipality, city, town, whatever it is. And also within this language, it allows employers to continue to utilize drug-free workplace policies. So they're not forcing workplace employers or any company or employer to allow for marijuana use within their company. Obviously, that would create safety issues if that wasn't the case. Next thing that stood out to me, the revenue raised from sales taxes for marijuana. They dictated that 1/4 needs to be placed in a special fund to establish a commission on expungement, criminal justice, community investment, and cannabis industry equity and diversity. So all of the race-based issues that the marijuana industry has been plagued with, they're trying to ameliorate that by adding that in there. They also say that at least one half of the revenue raised from sales taxes have to be allocated to state and local government, and 1/10 need to be returned to municipal corporations or townships in which the retail sales occurred in proportional amounts based upon the sales taxes remitted. So what that really means is it's kind of an incentive to have municipalities allow for dispensaries and other type of marijuana companies within their localities. So they're pretty much saying, if you allow us to take up shop in your locality, in your municipality, you can get a tax kickback, a revenue kickback from the sales taxes. And I know that was something that was also discussed when it came to the language for the House bill that's currently being kind of redone. So just kind of adding that incentive for municipalities, because I'm sure they expect that municipalities are going to try to immediately pass ordinances or prohibitions for safety reasons, and for to lower access to youth and things like that. So those are the things that stuck out to me. Obviously, there's a lot more in here. There isn't much on enforcement. There isn't much on consumer protection, safe storage, things like that, which obviously are red flags. So next webinar, I'm going to do a more in-depth analysis of it for you guys. But these are the things that stood out to me. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them to me. Obviously, we'll have a Q&A period at the end of the webinar like we always do. But many of you already have my email. If you don't, just let me know. Feel free to email me about this, and I can have any discussions about this that you guys want. This is pretty new. We have no sense of whether they'll be able to gather the signatures by July 1st. I was talking to Marcie the other day, and she said that some of the medical marijuana dispensary owners are for it. Some of them are against it. Obviously, this would kill the medical marijuana industry, so I can definitely see where some medical marijuana dispensary owners would fight back to try to keep their, piece of the pie alive. So, yeah, we have no idea how much money is behind it. I don't really know who the backers are. I'm assuming it's just the standard industry folk, people that I know our organization and other organizations have kind of been interacting with in this space for a while now. But if you guys have any information that I don't have, or know of anything, or know of individuals asking for signatures in your communities, please let us know so that we can keep tabs on this and respond accordingly. And Marcie, I don't know if you have anything else to add about it.
No, not really. I thank JP for digging into this, and we'll continue to dig into this. This is again places marijuana front and center in our communities, and there's a lot of things that we'll need to start looking at and educating about, and we're doing our part here at Prevention Action Alliance to get ready to provide you with some tools that you will need as we move forward.
Yep. Also, one thing that I forgot to mention, and this was on the previous slide, but the cultivation and the production of marijuana in the state would be regulated by the Ohio Department of Commerce if this were to be enacted. So that would be the entity that would be in charge of licenses and things like that. But again, when it comes to enforcement and stuff, similar to consumer safety, there isn't much mentioned within this language about that. And as I continue to dig, if I find something, I'll definitely let you guys know. But so far, that's what stuck out to me, and that's what I see. So moving forward, there is a House bill that I want to put on everyone's radar. This bill was introduced last Tuesday and is sponsored by Representative Brinkman and Representative Kelly. This bill is similar to the Health Education Standards Bill, but it singles out mental health education. So the language states that the state board shall adopt standards for mental health education in grades pre-K through 12. And disregard the title, it should say mental health education standards, not mental education standards. I must have missed the health. But the standards within this bill, based on language, would address mental well-being, depression, anxiety, drug and alcohol abuse, bullying and harassment, trauma, and suicide. So I'm assuming it would be a similar curriculum to the mental health first aid curriculum that I know I have personally been pushing the General Assembly to adopt for their staff. So far, this bill looks very good. It avoids the sex education issue that the health education standards bill has run into. It also avoids any issues related to vaccines, because apparently anti-vaxxers have also been very against the health education standards bill. Apparently those are the two groups, based on what I've been told, that have really been pushing back on it. And they're the reason why those two bills, both the health education standards bill in the House and the Senate, have been bogged down and really haven't received the hearing in quite some time. So this bill, because it's singling out mental health education, because it kind of avoids all those issues, has, I believe, a better chance to pass. One group that I do know, or at least that I do believe, that will come out against this is gun rights groups throughout the state. Anytime you talk about education revolving around suicide, because of the completion rates of suicide through the use of firearms, a lot of these pro-gun groups, immediately try to fight back on that. We've seen that with House Bill 123, which is the school safety bill, which also has suicide prevention and suicide prevention education language in that bill. We've seen those gun rights groups tackle that as well. So I completely can see a scenario where these groups kind of attack that bill, or this bill, based on the suicide awareness education alone. But it's a good bill. Hasn't moved anywhere, obviously. It's only been out for a week. Representative Brinkman is a Republican sponsor. Representative Kelly is a Democrat, so bipartisan sponsorship. It is introduced pretty late in the General Assembly cycle, so that might be an issue. But I've seen bills pass within months. So it really just depends on where the leadership is when it comes to this. If they want to pass it, they can. So if you have any questions about the bill, feel free to email me, contact me. Obviously, these offices are the ones that introduced it, so they probably have more information than I do. So feel free to reach out to Representative Brinkman and Rep. Kelly, especially if they are your personal representatives. It'll be a great way to make an initial connection, and also a great way to get more information on the bill. So I'm going to pass the phone along to Marcie. But before that, we did want to touch on the coronavirus issue, the COVID-19 issue. I'm sure many of you have heard that there are now 3 confirmed cases in Ohio, all up near the Cleveland area. But OSU, as of yesterday, announced that they are canceling face-to-face classes. And there are a lot of smaller ceremonies and meetings held by the university that are now canceled as well. So I know that kind of brought up some red flags for people. So I just wanted to pass the phone along to Marcie, because she has some additional information on how the virus is affecting the state.
Thank you, JP, and good morning again to everybody. This is a rapidly evolving situation in the state of Ohio, the country, and absolutely in the entire world. But in Ohio right now, because of the 3 cases that were identified yesterday or confirmed yesterday, the state has put an action plan into place, and at noon today, we've been summoned to a call with other statewide organizations to learn exactly what the plan is, what expectations are, what we can do. And as that information evolves and comes along, we will pass that out to you. One thing that did come out, and you may have seen it, is a document that came from Director Chris at the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And certainly this is something that in their world and all of our worlds, that it's very important when we take a look at psychiatric hospitals and that we have patients in. So those areas are very vulnerable to this type of an epidemic. And so they're looking at increasing the cleaning at those regional hospitals. They're doing more prevention and screening of patients in those hospitals. And they're doing more education for the staff and the patients in the hospitals and for the family. They're increasing the targeting of medications to make sure there's enough on hand should they go into a lockdown. They have updated a business plan that they will be sharing with everybody. So there's just a lot of additional information that has come out. Probably let me see if I can find here one thing that I encourage you to go to is the coronavirus, coronavirus.ohio.gov, and that is the state of Ohio's central collecting point of information that where we should go to get answers about what's happening in Ohio. So I encourage you to do that, and we will pass along all the different things that we can at this point as they become available to us. All right, JP, let's take a look at marijuana. That seems to be the word of the day around here in our webinar. The medical marijuana updates. We had a medical marijuana advisory committee last Thursday and received a lot of updates. And this is just our standard slide that just shows how the program is progressing and growing at this point. Still, of the 19 level 1 provisional licenses for cultivators, there are 10 that are operational and 10 that are operational out of the 13 for the level 2. Dispensaries have moved up. We are now to the point where we have 49 out of the 56 that are operational around the state of Ohio. And so that continues to roll out and starts to fill the obligations of dispensaries in the state of Ohio. The sales numbers, I can just let you take a look there, and you can see and track how it continues to grow each month. And this is this last month, how much it's grown, certainly up to nearly 10,000 pounds of plant material. So that's a great deal of plant material in the state of Ohio. Processors as well, we are 44 is what we're supposed to be having, and we have 17 operational licenses. At this point, that seems to be kind of slow to come up, but that is the the individuals or the firms and companies that change the raw material into different products of oils and patches and food and lotions for the use of an individual. Okay. Here's the thing that I always think is interesting is to take a look at where the patients and the care numbers are. This is as of just 4 days ago, actually. So you can see that recommendations are up to nearly 95,000 individuals. You can see recommendations, though, does not equate to registered patients because a patient some can receive more than one recommendation based on the type of diseases that they are dealing with. And then as you come down, you can see where the individuals where it's unique patients who've actually purchased marijuana. So there's a kind of a disconnect between the 84,000 individual registered patients and then the 60,000 plus people who've actually gone to purchase marijuana from the dispensaries. And there was a discussion at the meeting as to why that disconnect and what it looks like. One of the doctors who sits on the committee indicated that from his perspective, there were a couple reasons that could be possible for this. One is there's a lag time from when they take a snapshot of what's happening. There's a lag time between it was recommended to a patient and when the patient actually made it to the dispensary to purchase their product. So that's a possibility. Another is that, as he indicated, was that once they got the recommendation, realized when they got to the dispensary how expensive it was, the fact that insurance did not cover it, they may have opted not to take that as an option of their treatment process. So that could be one as another. And then the other, which many of us fear, and again, it's only a fear and a guess, but we believe that people are getting the cards and still maintaining their black market supply of medical or of marijuana. Can't prove that at this point, but there's some substantial information that kind of floats through the underground that would indicate that might be possible, but we can't call that a fact. We can only call that a rumor at this point. And just another thing that just keep in mind is that the people that are terminally ill is certainly not that many. It's only 473. So we have, as we talked about the last month, we talked about each November that they do, the medical board gets an opportunity to review applications to increase the conditions from which people can be recommended marijuana. And they've narrowed it down from all the 27 petitions that they have. They reviewed it on February 12th, and they've come down to 3 at this point. Some of them look fairly familiar to the last time: anxiety disorder and autism spectrum disorders. And they're going ahead to continue to review those because new information has come in. They're not going to base it on what they did before, only if that there's new information that supersedes what they believed was the right decision not to have those as conditions in the prior year. So that will happen again, and they will continue to do that by going into 3 select committees that will take place from now until summertime, and in the summer that they will be making a final decision. And you could see, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but the wasting syndrome is another one of the 3 at this point. So you can see that right here on the slide there is a website address that you can go to where you can actually view the petitions and see why they are recommending it or why they're pushing to have them to become a part of the list of recommending conditions. And then at that point you can get additional, once you get in there, you can see additional information if you're curious as to how this whole process works and what kind of research and recommendation support that's there for these particular conditions. And it's kind of interesting reading. So one of the things that came out this time that they distributed, and we'll make sure that all of you have access to it, is the 2019 Medical Marijuana Patient Report. And that's an awfully long web address down there, but that's what we have at this point, and we'll make it a quicker link for you. But there's some interesting information. Each year, they are required to put out reports of how the process is going. That is both, or excuse me, in all 3 actually, the Pharmacy Board, the Department of Commerce, and the Medical Board are supposed to gather information and provide reports so that we can see how this particular program is progressing and the good and the bad and the ugly of it. The things that I thought were very interesting in the report that just came out from the Pharmacy Board was pretty much it's the makeup of the patients who are enrolled in this particular program. And you can see right here on the screen how it breaks out. And surprisingly, it's surprising to me, the 18 to 29 is less than the other age groups, other than over 70. But those age groups in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s are all really compact, almost evenly right there together. Those that are under 18, the number of individuals that fall into that group are so small that they don't hit the chart or the percentage chart, but there are obviously patients who are under the age of 18. And the others on the right side of the slide, it shows what the 4 main diseases that are being prescribed or people are buying marijuana as medicine for, and that is, as we know, pain is no surprise to us, post-traumatic stress disorder, fibromyalgia, and cancer. And I think the thing that's really interesting about the pain, there's almost 56,000 individuals who are receiving marijuana because of that condition. The second one is fibromyalgia, and that has only 8,600 individuals as opposed to the nearly 56,000. let's see, the next one was, oh, I'm sorry, post-traumatic syndrome. I missed that one. Post-traumatic syndrome has 13,000, almost 14,000 involved in that. And cancer only has a little under 6,000 patients. So pain far and away is the reason that people are looking to get a subscription or be subscribed to this particular medication. So I encourage you to go to it and take a look at the report. There's a lot of good information in it besides those figures. It tells you by county what the daily doses are that have been taken or purchased at that point and the supplies of it. And it shows it for each county so we can get a sense of where most of the marijuana is being utilized. And of course, it's in the larger urban areas or in our metropolitan areas as opposed to out in the country or the rural areas. So encourage you to take a look at that. And I think that's all I have. I'm going to turn it back to JP now.
Thank you, Marcie. So we are going to open up our Q&A period. So if you have any questions, please send them through the questions box. And we'll probably hang around for about 1 to 2 minutes, going a little past 10:30. And if no questions come up, then we'll go ahead and close this out. So we do have one question. So one listener asked if Marcie believes that people are now using marijuana for pain instead of opiates, and if there are any studies asking this question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a good question. Yes, we are hearing anecdotally, in fact, that people are moving to try to use marijuana as opposed to opiates, and that certainly is something that individuals who are using it proclaim in the process. And as I said, the doctor that sits on the Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee with us, he indicated he is a pain doctor, and he has decided to add that to what he added that tool to his toolbox in saying that there were people that were requesting it because they didn't want to use opiates. And so I think that's happening. Now, as for studies, I'm sure that there may be. I don't have any that can pull up to mind right now that I can quote and give you that definitively. While they say that using marijuana decreases the deaths of opiates, there's a lot of disagreement with that and studies that show that that may not at all be the case. But we'll take a look at those and we'll get those out to you if you're interested.
Awesome. Thank you, Marcie. And if there are no other questions, we're going to go ahead and close this out. Just a very quick note, next week, next Tuesday, are the primaries, election day. Please go out to vote if you are registered and participate in our great democratic process if you can. So looking forward to seeing you guys next month. If you have any questions in the meantime about anything that we discussed today, feel free to email me or Marcie. Marcie's email is on the screen, and my email is just jpdorval with the same at preventionactionalliance.org. So feel free to contact us if you have any additional questions. Thanks, guys. Bye.